Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Goodwin with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. Welcome to this week's History is Lunch program. We're in our home, the Craig H. Nielsen Auditorium in the Museum of Mississippi History and Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. And we're streaming live on both Facebook and YouTube, where these videos are available to watch anytime afterwards. And if you've not already done so, please silence your phones. MDH has hosted our first Religion in Mississippi History Research Fellow this year. Funded through Lilly Endowment Incorporated, the fellowship seeks to encourage research regarding the role of religion in Mississippi history. Summer King, a graduate student at the University of Mississippi, was selected as the inaugural fellow, and this Saturday, August 24th at 10 a.m., she'll present via Zoom the findings of her research project, How the Fire Spread, Interracial Pentecostalism in Mississippi. You can register for the program on the MDH website, and we'll send you the Zoom link for that. It should be really interesting. And then I hope you'll come back next week for History is Lunch, when University of Mississippi archivist Jeannie Speck Thompson will present a new collection and new look at M.B. Mayfield's art. Today's program with Greg Biggs is in conjunction with our Flags from Mississippi Emblems Through Time exhibit upstairs, where Biggs will give a gallery talk tomorrow at 11 a.m., Here to say a few words about the gallery talk and today's speaker is Drew Gardner, the manager of Family and Community Learning at the museums.
So we get the wonderful privilege of having Greg not only here today for History's Lunch, but also tomorrow in our Flags from Mississippi Emblems Through Time exhibition upstairs. This was an in-house exhibition created by our curatorial services team. They've done an excellent job with 20 flags that span Mississippi's 200-plus year history. And so if you haven't been to that space, I'd encourage you to make your way up there today after History's Lunch, or to make your way up and join us tomorrow, where Greg will kind of continue this conversation, especially as we look at several of the 19th century flags that are on display, specifically surrounding the Civil War in that space. And so we'd love to have you again tomorrow at 11 o'clock upstairs in our Medgar and Merle Evers exhibition, our FedEx exhibition hall upstairs. So we'd love to have you guys there. But let me tell you a little bit about Greg. Greg is an expert on military flags of the 18th and 19th centuries. He advised MDH on the Flags from Mississippi exhibition. He is the staff rides facilitator at Fort Donelson National Battlefield and has led battlefield tours of the U.S. Army staff rides of Tullahoma Campaign, Atlanta, Chickamauga, and Chattanooga Campaign, and others. Biggs has contributed to books from Georgia, Illinois, and Tennessee, and has written for such publications such as the Blue and Gray magazine, Hallowed Ground, and the Civil War Regiments. Biggs attended the University of Tampa and Stephen F. Austin State University, and is a frequent speaker at Civil War Roundtables across the country. And his presentation today is going to focus on Magnolia Banners, Mississippi flags that got away. So, without further ado, let's give Greg a hand as he comes up.
Thank you. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Good. Microphone's working, I hope. So thanks for having me down. I haven't been to Jackson probably, since about 2014 or 15 when I talked to the Civil War Roundtable about not flags, something different. But flags is been in my life for about 38, 39 years. And I've since expanded from the Civil War flags into Napoleonic era, because I'm big into that, and Revolutionary War, back to Frederick the Great and stuff, because it's kind of a linear thing, and how flags happen going all the way back to the Roman legions, where the cloth would hang down called the vexillum, which is where we get our term vexillology, the study of flags. That was the late Whitney Smith that came up with that. So I decided to put this one together because you all have a great collection of flags here in this museum. And there's a number of them that are not. And when I was telling Chris this morning, when I started putting this together, there's a lot more flags out there than I thought. So I'm going to be moving at flank speed. If you're not into the Navy, that means full speed ahead. So hopefully you can keep up with me, and I'll hang around and we'll talk afterwards. One of my favorite flags in this collection, the 3rd Mississippi Battalion Duncan Rifleman with the Scots Thistle in the center. It's just a really, really pretty flag. You're going to see some flags that you're like, why would you take that into battle and get it shot up? And I go, yeah, I get that one too. But there's some other flags that will show up here in 1905, and you have a kind of a list up there on the screen. Let me get the little magic guy going here. These are from a couple of Mississippi newspapers talking about flags that were in the War Department and trying to get them sent back. They tried in 1887 in the President Cleveland administration, and the Grand Army of the Republic, which is the organization of Union veterans, particularly the Ohio branch, went nuts. In fact, the head of the GAR in Ohio said of the idea, "May a palsy strike the mind that thought this. May a palsy strike the mouth that spoke this. May a palsy strike the hand that wrote this." I don't think he was kidding. He was serious. So that got tabled. What changed, and nobody has really connected this dot very much, is the Spanish-American War, where you have Southern boys wearing blue uniforms again, fighting in the Philippines, Cuba, and other places, and marching troops down to where I went to college at University of Tampa, was the headquarters of the United States Army for the Cuban expedition. So I'm walking the same halls as Shafter, Leonard Wood, Joe Wheeler, all these other guys, Teddy Roosevelt, were the Rough Riders in that building. And so to get that going, President McKinley reached out to Southern people to support the campaign, and because of that, when Teddy Roosevelt becomes president, he goes, now that we're definitely united, let's talk about sending these flags home. But not all of the flags get sent to the War Department, because some northern commands captured flags and kept them. You see on the top part, Minnesota, 35th and 39th, that were captured at Allatoona Pass, and Iowa having a few flags, including a couple that were captured at the Battle of Corinth. So they don't come back, but you can see from the headlines, hey, Iowa's going to send some flags back, and they do send a couple. They want to get returned. That goes on and on and on up there with Minnesota. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. So when I was putting this together, I was trying to figure out, how do I want to organize this? We're going to organize it by pattern. Now, these are all flags that are in this collection, but for the illustrative purposes of what I wanted to do, to show you, plus I live in Tennessee, and I had to put a Fort Donelson flag up here, the Shibuda Rifles of 14 Mississippi, and that's the 44th Mississippi captured the Battle of Nashville, or as it says on the flag, Brentwood Hills, because it was actually the hills south of downtown. So I'm breaking this down by pattern, and that's how we're going to do this. So the militia era of the United States is pre-Civil War or pre-Revolutionary War into the 19th century and up to the Civil War. North and South would have militia units, and they would be presented colors. This flag turned up a few years ago, and it's the flag of Mississippi Rifles, who would later be Company D, the second Company D. They would reorganize their companies, of the 10th Mississippi Infantry. And on the screen there, sorry for the folks at home that can't see the pointer, but in the middle, you'll see two flags presented that day. This one, which is listed down here, Mississippi Rifles, and then the Mississippi Capital Dragoons. I looked up who those guys were, and that was Captain Erasmus Burt. That's the predecessor of the Burt Rifles, whose flag is here in this collection. This is the canton of a United States flag. By regulation, U.S. military flags were 6 by 6.5 feet. This canton, you see the dimensions, 30 by 36. So they basically cut, all that survives is the canton. When these companies would tender to Confederate service or state service, if they had a United States Stars and Stripes flag, they often will cut off the Stars and Stripes part or repurpose it into a Confederate First National. I've seen both. So that's why you see all that survives of this one. From the secession era, there's some interesting flags that turn up. Nobody has written scholarly articles on flags that are based on the U.S. flag. We have multiple stars. You've got 8 stars here, Mississippi in the center, and then multiple stripes. This one came out of Northeast Mississippi on the right-hand side. These are what we call inclusionary flags. Southern states getting together, making flags based on the flag of the United States. Keep in mind, when secession happens, they're not mad at the flag. They're mad at the federal government. And the flag has a deep meaning to Southerners because they'd fought to sustain that flag and the United States for quite a long time prior to the war. So these flags tie into that. This is a sentiment like, yeah, we want to have a secession color, but we're going to still kind of use the United States flag as the basis. This flag has a pretty good connection with this city. When the secession convention happens in January, they hoist the Bonnie Blue flag. I call them Lone Star flags initially because there are other examples of different colors. There's one in Georgia that's white with a red star, etc. The actual Bonnie Blue flag dates to the West Florida Republic of 1810. That's lower Mississippi, lower Alabama, and all the way into Florida at the Perdido River boundary there, and into parts of Louisiana. And they were briefly a sovereign republic owned by Spain, then France, and then Spain again, and then we got it eventually. And they hoisted a blue flag with a white star, but it had a white border around it. I found a period description. So this flag comes back into vogue in the Texas War of Independence of 1836. Some units come down there with Lone Star flags. And of course, when they hoist it here, Harry McCarthy on the left-hand side, sheet music was how they sold records back in those days. Wrote a song, he was inspired by it, and he takes an Irish song called Irish Jaunting Car, changes the lyrics to become the Bonnie Blue Flag, which is a kind of de facto anthem for the South. Back then they didn't have copyright attorneys, so he didn't get sued for plagiarizing the music, which he would be doing today. So the Mississippi Secession Convention creates a republic flag. The first 7 states that go out, starting in December 60 into February of 61, declare themselves sovereign republics. I've got pictures of stationery, the Republic of Georgia, the Republic of Louisiana, and that was to declare themselves as sovereign nations to get around the constitutional federal supremacy clause of states not going into compact with each other. So when you're a new nation, what do you need? Flag. Got to have a flag. Not all of the 7 states, not even all of the 11 Confederate states will create a flag. Some don't. Some do and some don't. Mississippi will be one that does, and we'll get to that. But you can see with the Secession Convention on the right-hand side, a magnolia tree flag of a white ground, blue field in the upper corner with a white star in the center, Bonnie Blue Flag connection, and the flag to be furnished with a red border and red fringe at the extremity. That is the official description of it from the Vicksburg newspaper. But you can see already what the boys over here at Oxford are coming up on the left-hand side with their own kind of variant of different kinds of flags. As I was talking to Clay over there this morning, this is the end of Jacksonian America. Jacksonian America means if it's written down, we can do what we want, right? They don't care. And people are going to take a flag act like this and interpret it their own way. So you're going to see a number of flags that sort of follow what the convention intended and some not. Here's the only extant one that I know of that fits that description: red border, Lone Star, and a magnolia tree in the center. This was captured in Boonville, Mississippi by the 2nd Iowa Cavalry in May of '62. That is a silver metallic thread. There it is enlarged. So it sticks up out of that flag about like this. And then Clay's seen this, and this is kind of a multicolor sort of embroidery that he said sticks up even further. So for conservators, that's a pain in the neck to put that glass down to flatten it out, because you're going to have a bulge in the center of the flag. But it's a really, really pretty flag. There were at least 4 Mississippi flags made for the 4 brigades of the Army of Mississippi in 1861, when it was the state army. Charles Clark commanded one of those brigades up in the Corinth area. He'll show up in my neighborhood at Fort Donelson with the Mississippi troops. Now we jump to the Confederate government in Montgomery, Alabama. Birmingham didn't exist. And the capital's there for a few months, and they form the first act. If you read in the papers of the Confederate Congress, they form the Committee on Flag and Seal. Why? New nation, we need a flag. So William Portia Miles on the left-hand side is a South Carolinian. He's one of the fire eaters from South Carolina, but he's a heraldry expert, from which flags descend from the Middle Ages. And they put him in charge of the committee, and they have a representative from each of the states that have gone out. And they will start to take in submissions. That book is at the National Archives of the Flag Committee. His inspiration somewhat is the sovereignty flag of the state of South Carolina, which flew during the Secession Convention. And when they proposed this flag, they got some flack from the Jewish community of Charleston, led by Charles Moisey, who wrote in and interprets that as a Christian flag, even though that is a cross of St. George, not a Latin cross like we see on the churches today. So he also gets fundamentalist Christian sects writing in and saying, we can't support that, that's misusing the flag of our church. So Miles, being an expert of heraldry, tilts it on its angle. That's called a saltire. And that's the design he will submit to the committee. There's something wrong with that design, not quite enough stars, so it gets rejected because it looks asymmetrical. In fact, one member of the Confederate Congress called it a pair of blue suspenders. Here's the other 4 finalists for the Flag Committee, and I'll talk about the mythology afterwards. The one that wins, the First National, is the one on the left here. 7 stars initially, 3 bars, based on the flag of the United States. Here's another one very similar. This one's kind of weird. You should see some of the other ones on there. A couple of the other ones look like when I bought the first Jimi Hendrix album, 1967. Pulled the poster out like, wow, that looks pretty cool under a black light. And they designed this kind of stuff back in those days. So that's the flag that's going to win. The myth is, after the war, about mid-1870s, is a man from Marion, Alabama named Nicola Marshall, who was a Prussian immigrant, designed it, and a guy named Orrin Randolph Smith out of North Carolina designed it. The United Daughters of the Confederacy of North Carolina squared off against the UDC of Alabama, and they went to war. Literally. They should have put helmets and pads on to put them on a football field and let them have it out, because it was that brutal. And they both issued reports saying, this guy did it, neither man did it. Their name cannot be found in the records of the Flag Committee logbook at the National Archives, even if you use a search warrant. They're not there. Post-war mythology. The other post-war mythology is Betsy Ross designed the Stars and Stripes. Frances Hopkinson did that. She made them, didn't design it. So let's jump into some first national flags now that we know what it looks like, and they start issuing as companies are raised around the state. The upper one is the Calhoun Avengers. That's all that's left. It's the white bar of the first national flag, became a company of the 1st Mississippi Battalion. The lower left one is up at the Corinth Battlefield of National Park Sites, the 11th Mississippi. There's your Latin Cross on the flag. And the O'Connor Rifles is at the American Civil War Museum today in Richmond, Virginia. The Pontotoc, did I pronounce that right? Pontotoc? Okay, good. The Pontotoc Minutemen, that's up at University of Mississippi. Look what the motif is, Lone Star. Lone Star flags will pop up quite a bit in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and South Carolina, even though South Carolina has no connection to West Florida. On the obverse side, reverse side, is when you have the hoist edge on this side. That'd be the right-hand side of the flag in this picture. So you flip it over, it's the obverse. It's got the company name and the slogan, Always Ready. And then down at Grand Gulf, you see this flag of the Claiborne Guards on the right of the 12th Mississippi Infantry. The 9th Mississippi Infantry under James Chalmers will be one of the regiments that goes down to Pensacola. They get their flag made by James Cameron in Memphis, who is a noted flag maker. He will move here after Memphis falls in June of '62 and start making tents with a guy named Poole. And then after the war, he moves back to Memphis. He's a Scotsman. He's an immigrant from Scotland. The flag was presented by Speed, Donahoe, and Strange, who are local dry goods merchants that paid for this flag to be made. And you see the article here on the left-hand side in the middle, presented to the Mississippi Volunteers by Speed, Donahoe, and Strange. Flag's missing. Wish we knew where it was, because if you could read that article, it's a very, very pretty flag. Go that way. There we go. The one on the left, the Panola Guards, is at the Atlanta History Center. That turned up about 4 years ago. They have not pulled it out of its box yet because it's too fragile. When they get it to a conservator, we'll get to see what it is. So I have no idea what the pattern is. I don't know if it's an all blue flag or it's a canton of a First National. And then up on the right, you see the Corinth Rifles, who are the 9th Mississippi. That's also up the road in Corinth at the National Park Center there. And it's made in Mobile by a guy named Jackson Ogden Belknap. And he signs it right here, J.O. Belknap, Mobile. And he will advertise. He's a smart guy. He's a sign painter by trade. So if you have a business, you want to hang your sign out in front of your store or business, you pay him and he'd paint your sign and you'd hang it up. So he naturally jumps into the flag painting trade, as a number of sign painters north and south are going to do. And he will start advertising in Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama. I will make unit colors for you. And it is one of the real pretty flags. It's got a nice magnolia up there in the center of the canton. 21st Mississippi's New Albany Grays is down the road at Beauvoir. Beautiful flag. And then the Vicksburg Artillery is down the road in Vicksburg at the museum there. God We Trust is the slogan on the back. That's a fairly common little patriotic slogan that they will put on the backs of flags or on the fronts of them. Bible flags were designed to literally go in your Bible. I call them personal flags because they can go from this big to about that big. You're not going to put a flag that big in your Bible. You'll probably put a small one in there. Nobody has written a scholarly article on this. A flag dealer named Jeff Bridgman, who you see cited there, is an expert on these kinds of flags. So the one on the left-hand side there is the Volunteer Southrons of the 21st Mississippi. That's at their museum over there. And then this is one from Captain William Harris, who was in the 19th Mississippi. The stars you see on this flag are actually cut from metal. and actually stitch the flag. A lot of times it'll be one star and just really weird, funky stitches. Palmetto flag for South Carolina, I want to know about. But these are all metal. You can see like those two are bent. The star egg legs are bent a little bit. These are really, really fascinating flags. Some artillery flags of the first national pattern. The Vicksburg Artillery down the road again in Vicksburg. Victory or death is their slogan. Very common slogan on early war flags. You see Fort McCree. That's when the Union tried to attack Fort McCree, which was in the middle of Charleston Harbor. It's gone now. Pensacola. It's gone now. It's been washed away over the years. And the battle honor is November 22 and 23 of 1861. The one on the lower right, I think, is from the Cowan's Battery. Mississippi Artillery Battery captured at the Battle of Franklin. You see a saltire cross in the canton. The bottom red bar is missing, and that big hunk of color right there is blood from two different men. The guy who captured it, the guy that carried it. Both blood on this flag. It's in a private collection now. This was captured at the Battle of Franklin. And if you know anything of the Confederate artillery, for most part, didn't come up. And what the Cowan guys did, along with several other batteries, is they went forward with the infantry carrying implements to fire captured Union cannons. And that's how this flag was taken. 30th Mississippi is over in Vicksburg with a Perryville Battle Honor. That's up in Kentucky. And what's fragments of the 35th Mississippi captured in 62. By the 14th Missouri, 66th Illinois, better known as Bergey's Western Sharpshooters. That's in private collection. That's the one there on the right. That's all that survives of that guy. These two flags have Missionary Ridge captures. In the Kansas History Museum, you see the one on the left. I think it's from Tucker's Mississippi Brigade based on where the Kansas troops went up on Missionary Ridge. And the one on the right there, possibly the 41st Mississippi. It also could be a unit from Alabama. That's a 31st Ohio capture. And that one on the right is in the American Civil War Museum in Richmond. Here's a couple miscellaneous first national flags. The one on the left I've seen listed as a Corinth flag or a Tupelo courthouse flag. This is not quite the canton you see, not extending all the way down here to the bottom bar, which is what the Flag Act said. Again, Jacksonian America, that's my interpretation. I'm going to go with it. And there's a number of flags that are similar to that. And then this is up at Western Reserve on the right in Cleveland, Ohio. That's a very large, about 10 by 16 flag that was captured in Corinth. And you see the little capture information tag there. That was from they had their display up a few years ago and put that thing on display. The one on the left-hand side is a pretty little first national with a star pattern. There were U.S. flags that had called the Great Star Pattern that will come pretty much after the war. That's in a private collection. And then the one on the upper right is in Chicago's Public Library, Vicksburg capture, and don't know who took it. And the bottom one is at the Texas UDC Museum in Fort Worth, and it's called the Vicksburg Boys flag. It was a company of Vicksburg young boys that formed early in 1861. And that's their nice, very pretty color. Still got the tassels and the ornate parts of the flag with it. Down below is a flag taken in Biloxi, Mississippi, sold by Heritage in 2017. And the bottom one is the Widow Blakely flag from Vicksburg. And here's a letter from the Union soldier. He talks about it there. This flag was presented and how it was captured and things of that nature in the upper right. I don't have a lot more information on that other than the letter and this in my files on these flags. Now we'll jump into Western Kentucky, January 19th of 1862 at the Battle of Mill Springs. The 15th Mississippi was one of the regiments that fought there. Had a real bad day. They lose about 7 or 8 of their flags. Most of them were in the company colors, and they're probably the regimental flag. This is a drawing based on that period newspaper from Adrian, Michigan, of what the flag looks like. So this is the Grenada Rifles presented by the women of Grenada to the company. You see one big star and what is that, 6, 7 stars, so it'd be 8-star flag, and then a motto in Latin. Latin slogans were common on both northern and southern colors. Unfortunately, the flag is missing today. It must have been a really, really pretty flag. Here's an unknown company flag that's in Indiana, captured by John Chavers, of the 10th Indiana. That's him in the upper right holding the flag, is still in the family. That's the best picture I got on there, and that's the Howard Mattis drawing. And it's got 15 stars for all 15 of the slave states. And that you'll see some 15-star flags later on in the program. The Wigfall Rifles of the 15th Mississippi were captured there. It's War Department number 23. It means it was sent to the U.S. War Department in late in 63. They started logging in the flags and giving them War Department numbers. And you see this article from the Louisville Journal talking about the flags being sent to Louisville, put on display, and then it went off to the War Department. This, according to the list of returned flags, this was returned to Mississippi in 1905. I have no idea where it is. This is a drawing of it from the War Department. The artist drew about 10 of the captured Confederate colors, and there's the Wigfall rifles right there in the center. And it's, according to the article, it said Jeff Davis and the Southern Confederacy was its patriotic slogan. Here's a couple more 15th Mississippi rifles that were captured there. You see the 2nd Minnesota there behind the rail fence, and that's the 15 Mississippi boys. That's the flag of the Yallabusha rifles. It's in this collection. Here's 2 other flags that were captured here with descriptions from period papers. They were both sent to Louisville. Who knows where they are now? Now, WD-50 at the American Civil War Museum might be one of these 2. I can't pin the tail on that one yet. Welcome to the world of flag historians, folks, trying to identify flags. Here's 2 more 15th Mississippi flags. Neither of these were at Mill Springs, and they're not even in the South. This one on the left is the William Collins flag for the Quitman Rifles. He ends up getting out of the 15th Mississippi and going to Canada to join the Southerners out there to start raiding into New England. The most famous being the St. Albans raid in Vermont, where they rob a bank. This guy raided into Maine. And that's where this flag is today, is in the Maine Historical Society. So it's up there. And then let's go west, young man, because lots of Americans after the war moved west. The Octabeha, is that the right pronunciation? I drove through the county last night and said, I know about that flag. How was it? Octabeha, thank you. I figured somebody had to know it. There's their flag out there in Salt Lake City at the Pioneer Museum. That means the flag went to Colorado, Idaho, and then the family took it down to Utah. So some colors do go west. I know of several other Confederate flags that are out west as well. Now, this is 38 miles down the road from my house, Fort Donelson, and this flag turned up a year ago, and I know the guy who owns it, and it's in Dover, Tennessee, in his private collection. Only extant flag of the 1st Mississippi Infantry. This is the Alcorn Rifles. This is a damask or damask silk. You can see a pleated silk on here. This means it was made by a professional using drapery material. My opinion is James Cameron from Memphis, because at least 2 other flags that he made are made like this with that kind of damask silk that you look at it, you see designs coming out of the silk. It's not just flat silk. Very, very pretty flag. This came from the family of Colonel John Thayer. He was the colonel of the 1st Nebraska at Fort Donelson, and he commanded a brigade of Union troops there. And that's the little mark that says surrendered by Rebel General Buckner, Simon Bolivar Buckner. Oops, wrong thing. This turned up 2 weeks ago. It's the finial, or the spearhead of the flagstaff of the Attala Yellow Jackets, and it's marked with their name right here, and then Yellow Jackets on the other side. Very, very faint. I have a guy that's an expert on finials who just wrote a book on it about a year or so ago, and he emailed this to me the other day, about 14 days ago, I guess. And I said, hey, give me good pictures because I'm putting this program together. I'm going to put your finial in there. Don't know where the flag is. Probably a Fort Donelson capture because the 4th Mississippi was there, and who knows where the colors are. But it came out of Illinois. So there were a bunch of Illinois troops at Fort Donelson. Here's one. I think I've been talking to Nan about this one and a couple of your predecessors about getting this back from Ohio. This is all that's left of the Plenitude Invincibles. 1889, a local reporter that would publish this article in 3 parts in the National Tribune went to the Ohio collection and wrote down every Civil War artifact they had on display in their state capitol. He must have had carpal tunnel by the time he was done. And this is one of the flags. There's the article. And it says, supposed to belong to the Plenitude Invincibles of South Carolina, 3 stripes, blue field, 12 stars, bordered with heavy fringe, cord, and tassels. That's all that's left, the canton and some of the cord and the tassels. So he saw it when it was, fairly intact. There is no Plenitude Invincibles from South Carolina. I did a lot of research on this. It's a company flag of the 23rd Mississippi, captured by the 58th Ohio at Fort Donelson. It's in the Ohio Historical Society's collection today. And the 23rd Mississippi also lost their regimental flag to the 8th Missouri, missing today. And then the Faulkner Guards flag down here of the 23rd Mississippi, the description talks about 11 stars, Faulkner Guards, and God We Trust. That was sent back to Fort Wayne, Indiana by Charles Case, a former congressman and the adjutant of the 44th Indiana. I've often thought about going to Fort Wayne and see if there are any descendants and knocking on a door. You got that flag? Can I take a picture if it still exists? The Blackland Gideonites, another company flag, was captured by Morgan Smith's brigade and somehow makes it to New York because in 1864, on the bottom, there's the catalog entry on the lower left, taken at Fort Donelson, ladies' gift to the Blackland Gideonites, may heaven crown you with victory. That one is in Smith's family collection. The descendants live in the Cincinnati area to this day. The 20th Mississippi came west from Virginia with the 4 Virginia regiments to fight at Donelson. They had a flag shipped to them from Virginia. Here's the telegram about it. And then here it is on the lower picture is their inventory of items coming. And it talks about this flag coming down from Virginia, from the railroad down to Chattanooga up to Nashville, then by steamboat to Fort Donelson. The Company A, the McGehee Rifles, also received a flag, and that's what this description is at Donelson. And they said that at the surrender, we built a fire and laid the flag in the flames, so we kept our pledge never to surrender the flag. I have another account that says they threw it in the Cumberland River. So either way, it's missing today. The second national flag is created in May of 1863 by the Confederate Congress because of dissatisfaction of the first national flag, looking too U.S. to a lot of people. These are both captured by a gentleman named Newton Hall, the 104th Ohio, at the Battle of Franklin. Both of these are in the American Civil War Museum in Richmond. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. There's his grave site there, and his GER star just down below it. WD 240, WD 241, probably from William Loring's division, most likely Featherston's Mississippi Brigade of Loring's division. Loring's division will use a number of Second National battle flags from late 1863 on through, because these could be made by men that had tailoring skills. As long as they could get the cloth, they could sew a flag. And a number of flags were made by males in the ranks. Here's the 40th Mississippi, we think, captured at Peachtree Creek by the 105th Illinois. That's down the road at Memorial Hall in New Orleans. Now we get to the creation of the flag of the Army in Northern Virginia, mistakenly called the battle flag. There were lots of battle flags the Confederates used. They will make, using Miles' design, which he's now turned into a square and made it 4 stars. Military colors are square because they're quick and easy to make, typically. And then late 19th century, they go back to rectangles. This is Earl Van Dorn. Earl Van Dorn was a cavalry commander and an army commander, Trans-Mississippi. He's a Mississippian. That's his personal flag made by Constance Cary, one of the 3 Cary cousins and sisters who were from Baltimore and Richmond, Virginia. They made 2 other flags. One's for Beauregard and the other one for Joe Johnston. But that's going to be the impetus for the presentation of the first 120 Silk Army Northern Virginia battle flags with only 12 stars. This is the Don Troiani print that I worked with Don on putting this one together. And you see all 3 versions of these flags. There were 3 sewing circles that were given bulk cloth bought from the dry goods stores. It basically sucked all the pink cloth and light red cloth out of these stores to turn into 120 flags. You see the presentation ceremony. There's Beauregard in the center there, James Longstreet, Joe Johnston to the right, handing the flag to a Confederate colonel with his regiment formed. He gets to the colonel of the 20th Georgia. Beauregard does, hands him his colors. Do you swear to die defending this flag and never let it touch the ground? Yes, I do. And then he goes, sir, pink? Pink? And then Beauregard just snaps at him and says, then dye it red, sir. Dye it with your blood. It's pink because that was the common color. Red was a trim color in those days for women's clothing. So pink and light rose are ladies' dress colors. That's why the cloth is that way. So here's one of the silk. There's 2 of the silk battle flags that survive. That's the 11th Mississippi, captured the Battle of Antietam by the 2nd Massachusetts. That's at the U.S. Army Heritage and Education Center in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. You can see 6 pointed stars on that one instead of 5. That was originally a yellow border, by the way, with the blue hoist. This turned up about 4 months ago in a private collection in California, flag of the 13th Mississippi. The man is a descendant of the colonel. So when he swapped out to a later version of the Battle Army Northern Virginia flag, they retired this one because silk falls apart pretty easy. If you don't believe me, ask the United States Army Union units, because each of those guys are going through 3 to 5 sets of colors during the war. Now we get to the wool bunting issues that start coming out of the Richmond Depot in June of 1862. This is the second bunting that comes out. You can see the orange borders around them. They had some leftover orange wool bunting cloth. These are about 48 inches square, more or less. And these are 2 of the Mississippi units. One on the left, the 11th Mississippi, the flag that replaced the one you just saw, captured at Gettysburg. and the one on the right captured at the Battle of Glendale, which is one of the 7 days battles around Richmond in June, July of 62. According to the Richmond Depot logbook, which I have a copy of, they did a logbook for every year. The only one that survives is the 1862 one. They made 50 of these. That's it. So now we jump to the fourth bunting. We jump ahead because this collection has some third buntings, and I don't want to put some of those in there when you can see them. The 26th Mississippi is WD 289. The fourth buntings are really big. They're 51 inches square, really big stars, as you can see, bigger than the other ones. Are 5-inch stars. Captured by the 148th New York at Hatcher's Run. That's April 2nd of 1865. When the 6th Corps breaks through Lee's line southwest of Petersburg, they overrun the Mississippi troops and the Tennessee troops, both brigades losing a ton of their battle flags. And then the one on the right is the 16th Mississippi, captured at Battery Gregg. That's one of the 2 forts that are on the west side of Petersburg. So when the Corps broke through, they just did this and then slammed right into Battery Gregg. Really bad day. Here's the 11th Mississippi, also captured at Hatcher's Run. That's in a private collection. That's the best picture I could get out of Photoshop. That's a drawing of what it looks like to get an idea. So this flag with the Gettysburg honor, battle honors are not only there to, that lets the unit know, like, hey, we did some great stuff in the war, and the Union does the same thing. It helps us date when these flags are issued. This flag doesn't get issued till September of 1863. Because it's a post, Gettysburg being the last battle honor, that's when we can help date when the flags come out. This is at the University of South in Swanee, Tennessee, about 2 hours from where I live, up on Swanee Mountain, most beautiful college campus in the state of Tennessee. And this is a WD 448, possibly Abbey's Mississippi Battery, captured at Fort Blakely, Alabama, which is on the east side of Mobile Bay, along with Spanish Fort. That was April 1865. Joseph Stickles earned the Medal of Honor for that, of the 83rd Ohio. This is a rare 7th bunting. These don't come out till March of 1865. And I'm still trying to figure out how the heck does a 7th bunting flag get from Richmond to Fort Blakely, Alabama. But that's where it was taken. So that we know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. That's, again, welcome to being a flag historian. 21st Mississippi is down the road at Vicksburg. This is a variant of the A&V wool cotton issues of April, May of 62. And you see Private Austin Prescott there holding the flag, and then with him some of his mates in the regiment there. And you can see it's heavily souvenired. On the side here, as I like to tell people, that's not square or rectangular Yankee cannonballs. That's knives and scissors cutting little pieces to take home and save. This flag's a mess, is what this flag is. It's the Summit Rifles down at Memorial Hall, New Orleans. That's a 1950s picture on the left, and that's a more modern picture today. Believe it or not, with modern conservation techniques, you can fix that flag. Put it all back together like a jigsaw puzzle, conserve it, frame it, put it on display for a while. The technology is off the charts in terms of what they can do. Here's some banners in the Western Theater, the Hardy pattern battle flag. The upper one is a pattern of the 30th Mississippi, still in the family of the Colonel. These were made in Bowling Green, Kentucky initially in January of 1862, and then they were going to get made throughout the war, typically by men detached as tailors to make these flags, and the government buys bulk cloth and says, make flags, and they just start cutting and sewing and making the flags. This one's issued in early 63 in the upper top because the last battle honor is Murfreesboro. That's December, January of 62, 63. The 20th Mississippi may have gotten the flag that was coming from Virginia I talked about, may have gotten one of these at Bowling Green because that's where they show up. But we, based on the account of soldier J.M. Miller, he describes a Hardy pattern flag. The bottom one's the 3rd Tennessee, which was captured at Fort Donelson. That's what the 20th Mississippi flag would have looked like. It would have had a white hoist edge, and that with the unit designation there in the middle. This is the 24th or 30th Mississippi, captured by the 60th New York on top of Lookout Mountain when Hooker's troops swept around the nose of Lookout Mountain and just clobbered Walthall's Mississippians and Moore's Alabama brigades. The drawings on the right are Captain Paul Ambrose. He was on Hooker's staff. These drawings came up for auction in 2017 from a European auction house. And a guy alerted me to them, and I copied all the pictures off of it. But that's the flag, and it's got their battle honors here in the center, capture information on the reverse side of the flag bleeding through, and then that's the Ambrose drawing of this flag done pretty much at the time it was taken. That's at the American Civil War Museum, as are these two. Also taken on Lookout Mountain by the 149th New York, who would capture 6 flags in that engagement. And there's the Ambrose drawings of the colors down below. And you can see the Union will sometimes capture information on the flags, who took it, what brigade, what division, etc. The one on the left at the American Civil War Museum captured the Battle of Franklin, WD 243. It's possibly the 5th, 8th, or 32nd Mississippi based on where they were posted. And the one on the right is the 8th Mississippi in a private collection. I'm not 100% sold. This is an authentic flag. Looks a little hinky to me. The colors are not quite right. I'd love to get eyes on it. I'd love to bring it into a conservator, do some threat analysis, but I put it in here until it gets proven wrong. 15th Mississippi Battalion. This is down the road for me in Nashville at the Tennessee State Museum. I invite y'all to come on up and visit us in Tennessee. Hawkins Sharpshooters of the 15th Mississippi Battalion. When this flag is issued to them in March of '64, they disband. I guess the shock of getting a new flag was too much. They literally fall apart. The good thing is that tells us when what we call the Hardy-Claiborne pattern flags, because these are going to be issued only to units now in Pat Claiborne's division, start in March of '64 based on the issue of the Hawkins Sharpshooters. I put the 3rd Confederate in there, which is in Little Rock in their old State House Museum, because the 3rd Confederate had 2 Mississippi companies along with the 8 Arkansas troops that were in there. Confederate regiments were amalgamations of 2 or 3 companies from here, 2 or 3 companies from there, throw them together, call them Confederate. The only exception is the 5th Confederate. Those are pure Tennessee unit. This one turned up 2011, 2012. This is why you go to antique sales. This came out of Kansas. Guy bought an antique roll-top desk, took it home, pulled out the drawers in a cigar box. That never happens to me. If y'all love me enough and find one, if it's not Mississippi, give it to Nan. If it's Mississippi, give it to Nan. If it's not Mississippi, send it to my house. And he reached out to me. I looked at the picture, said absolutely 100% authentic flag. He brought it to the Tennessee State Museum. On the bottom picture, we backlit it to see, and you can see on the bottom, it'll say 32nd and 45th across the top. In the middle is the cross cannon muzzles up instead of muzzles inverted. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then MISS below. They've changed their designation several times. First the 45th Mississippi, then the 3rd Battalion, then the 32nd, 45th, then the 45th, and then back to the 3rd Battalion. That was twice in 1864. And what they did was pop off the old disc that had this stuff painted, but the paint bled through. But you can only see it when it's backlit. The cross cannon battle honor is exclusive to the Western Theater Confederate troops. That means you did something real heroic, charging a Union battery spitting canister at you and surviving and capturing those guns. So these guys, I don't remember where they captured the battery, but the order says muzzles inverted. So a lot of times when you see these, the Union will go, oh, we captured the 5th Confederate Artillery because it has muzzles up. And that's the symbol of artillery even today. The Polk Corps battle flags, the initial silk ones, the upper left and the lower left, came from Memphis, probably by James Cameron. These are really, really big, much, much bigger than the 10th Mississippi, which is one of the August '63 issues. I put that on there for scale. They also changed the amount of stars, dropped 2 stars on this one. But I mean, this flag is probably 9 feet long. So it's a big, big, big flag. This one is possibly the 29th to 44th Mississippi. It was saved from capture at Missionary Ridge and is in the collections of the Chicago Historical Society, and they've never photographed it. That's why I don't have a picture on here. And the bottom one's the 4th Tennessee that turned up. The Bragg Corps flags, there's a couple in the collection here, were made down the road in Mississippi by a sail maker and tent maker named Henry Cassidy. That's the invoice for them on the right. The first 3 numbers, letters there, will end up at Polk's Corps, and the rest of them go to Bragg's Corps. And these are literally issued on the road marching from Corinth to the Shiloh battlefield. Here's your flag, here's your flag, here's your flag, and then officers are riding up and down the line carrying the different corps flags so the troops knew who not to shoot at. Hardee's flag, Polk's flag, there's all kinds of documents about that. This is a flag that has a Shiloh connection captured there on the first day. It's probably from the 5th or 10th Mississippi Infantry. It's been ID'd as the 51st Tennessee. I don't buy that. And it was recaptured the next day by the 154th Senior Tennessee. That was the regiment out of Tennessee in Memphis that wanted to let everyone know they were the oldest regiment in the state. So by God, we're senior. That's why they put that in there. The one on the left is Colonel Thomas White, who was the colonel, later colonel of the 9th Mississippi. That's a sort of a mock-up of a bragg flag. That's in the Oklahoma Historical Society. Came out of his family. And then the one on the right-hand side is a variant retained by Colonel William Bishop and given to Charles Dahlgren, who was a Mississippian that also has a Tennessee connection. It's in the Tennessee State Museum today. The upper bar up here, it's embroidered 7th Mississippi. Very, very pretty flag. The Van Dorn pattern battle flag, this is Earl Van Dorn's creation, when the Missouri troops and the other troops are coming across the river, they get there after the Battle of Shiloh. He wants a distinctive battle flag made. The crescent is usually identified with South Carolina. If you look at the Missouri coat of arms, the crescent is on there too. So that's why he pulls this off to add to the flag, because the first troops are going to get them are the Missourians. There's no Mississippi connection to the Missourians, but these are probably made in Mississippi. I think these are made in Jackson, as a matter of fact. And these will show up in August, September of 1862. And the one on the left is the 43rd Mississippi, captured the Battle of Corinth. It's up in Iowa. And the other one on the right is possibly, not sure, Cowan's Mississippi Battery down the road in New Orleans. One way you can tell the later issues is it doesn't have the fringe and the stars are 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. That one, somebody drank a little too much. That's one thing I love about these flags is, yeah, who was drinking that day when they make these things? Love those. Here's James Cameron, Jackson Belknap back again. He and his wife Sarah down in Mobile will make more flags starting in October of 1863. These are mistakenly called the Forest Battle Flag. In fact, he gets them in July of 1863 after the Battle of Rice's Crossroads. 1864 after the Battle of Rice's Crossroads. The first ones go to William Hicks Jackson's Cavalry Division. And then it's the Mobile Garrison, Polk's Army of Mississippi, and assorted troops running around the Department of Alabama, Mississippi, and East Louisiana. The one on the left is Sears Mississippi Brigade, WD 219, captured on the retreat from the Battle of Nashville in December of 1864. And the one on the right is either down to the 3rd, 15th, 22nd, or 33rd Mississippi, captured by the 104th Ohio's J.C. Gaunt. His name is on the hoist, right about there, captured by J.C. Gaunt. That's in North Carolina, because it got mistakenly sent there. That's happened too. I alluded earlier about the 35th and 39th Mississippi flags captured at Allatoona Pass. That's what they look like. An artist up in Minnesota painted them, fortunately, because now we know exactly what they look like. It went, shall we give them back? Mississippi veterans said, would you send our flags back? And then in 1924, the Minnesota veterans, 4th Minnesota, tore them up. Nope, not sending them back. So on the left is what, and the middle are the two fragments of these flags left in Minneapolis. The ones on the right popped up for auction a few years ago. I do work with Cowan's Auctions. They sent it to me. I said, I can tell you exactly which flag the one on the right is from, and the one on the left, I sent them a whole write-up on it, and it came out in 2019. The one on the right came from a 4th Minnesota veterans family. So these veterans took these pieces home. This one came out in 2011. It's the 37th Mississippi, came out of the family. Jackson Belknap, there's his invoice for making some of these flags there on the right. Keep hitting the wrong button. Charleston Depot patterns, you pretty much had to be in Charleston, Savannah, or Florida to get these. So how the heck does the 46th Mississippi get one? Who knows? We have no idea. Made by Charles W. Stiles. There's one of his invoices on the left for making these flags. And that one was captured at Fort Blakely, also near Mobile in April 1865. The Augusta Depot battle flags are the rectangular ones made by Jacob Platt of Augusta, Georgia, through the depot there. This one was Stanford's Mississippi Battery, captured the Battle of Nashville. In June, I was visiting some friends in the Army at Fort Leavenworth, and guess whose grave I found? The captor of that flag. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for doing that. He's buried in their cemetery there. Let's join the cavalry, or JINE, as they would say then. The Jeff Davis Legion, that's in the Georgia Historical Society. That's got some Mississippi companies in it, the old 2nd Mississippi Battalion. And then the one in the center is the 12th Mississippi or the 16th Confederate Cavalry. It will change its designation, and that is Silas Buck, the color bearer, and there's the flag on the right-hand side. Originally in Kentucky Historical Society by mistake, and they traded it off to get a Kentucky flag. The 3rd national flag will show up officially in March of 65. The discussion starts in December 64, and several of them will get out as post flags, the hospital flag at Chimborazo and Richmond, and as unit colors. The 18th Mississippi lost their second national flag at the Battle of Bryce's Crossroads and replaced it with this third national flag. And there's the guy who retained the flag on the right-hand side and kept it at home. There's a Florida Cavalry Battalion flag that still exists. 5th Alabama's flag still exists. And he took his flag to the Little Rock United Confederate Veterans Museum and saved it from surrender. Chicago Historical Society has 2 flags for the 28th Mississippi Cavalry, their Mobile Depot on the left, and a very ornate flag on the right-hand side with battle honors on it. And you see a little newspaper article from the Chicago Tribune in 1927 showing the colors. 28th Mississippi Cavalry's Johnson Rebels is over there in Vicksburg. It's the one on the left. And then the Harvey Scouts were a unit that split off of Wirt Adams, a Mississippi Cavalry Regiment, and will do service in Mississippi and a little bit in Tennessee. Made by ladies of Claiborne County. That's in private hands today. Interesting artillery color. This is Ralston's Mississippi Battery, captures the Battle of Labadeville, Louisiana. Private collection down in New Orleans, as a matter of fact, just down the road. And then the Quitman Light Artillery. This is another flag in the Chicago Historical Society that has not been photographed, but we have a vivid description of what it looks like. But there were 2 Quitman artilleries. There was Cares and Lovell's. It might be Cares. There's the presentation for Cares, a company of the Quitman Light Artillery, because the flag has a description, QLA, gold cannons, the date of the fight at Fort McRae, and then Semper Paratus, always faithful, and the fly edge having a red border. I wish I could photograph it, but now, I talked earlier about Van Dorn flags and also flags made in Mississippi. This one turned up a few years ago. It's one of the ones made for Cockrell's Missouri Brigade. And it's either the 2nd, 3rd, or 5th, because the 4th and the 6th already exist, and we know where those are. And you can see it's a different star pattern, and it's got fringe all the way around it, and that was typical. This was made by Marianne Carruthers up in Itawamba, thank you. Itawamba County. I'll learn how to speak all your county names by the time I leave. And look what she did. She embroidered her name, Marianne Carruthers, on there. And over further to the right is SAC for Sarah Ann Carruthers, her daughter, that helped make these flags and give them to the Mississippi boys. And these will predate, as do the other 2, the 4th and 6th, predate the ones that I showed you earlier. The ones on the right are enigmas, because we don't know who made them. Bottom one's the 50th Tennessee Infantry, guys from my town, Clarksville, Tennessee, and surrounding area, 50th Tennessee. And then the 7th Texas Infantry up there. The Vicksburg parolees in October of 62 get exchanged, the Donelson parolees get exchanged at Vicksburg. That's the exchange point. They stay here, and they will fight at the Battle of Raymond, and they get new colors. Note that these flags both have 15 stars. There are 2 other ones made in Mississippi at this time frame that also have 15 stars. We do not know who the makers are. The conservator of the top flag, the 7th Texas, took that flag down to the Tennessee State Museum, laid it next to the 50th. It's the exact same cloth, the exact same maker. He could tell by the sewing technique. So y'all help us out. We'd love to find out who made these down there. Somebody in southern Mississippi put these together. Some flags will remain missing today. The Wigfall Guards, the 1st Mississippi Sharpshooters, becomes later the 2nd Confederate. The original designation, 1st Mississippi Valley Regiment, because they had a bunch of companies there. There's the flag description of what the flag looked like from F.S. Wright, who was a member of that unit. And the search continues, and more flags have started to pop up over the last few years, which is great fun for us flag nerds, and I willingly use the word nerd. In fact, I saw a museum nerd shirt I'm going to go buy in a minute. This came from the New Orleans Times-Picayune, the Quitman Guards. This is their pre-war flag. You can see a nice picture of this thing. Must have been just gorgeous. It was paid for by subscription. If memory serves, it cost about $250. That was a lot of cash in those days, a lot of cash. It's retained by the family of Captain John Holmes, and it was put out on display a few times for people to enjoy and see, and you can see it needs some help already back in 1906. Thank you for having me down here. I'll hang out and do some question and answer. You want to throw me in the river, we can do that too. There's some hands, putting Ann's name up there, because Ann's been great helping me out over the years. The late Ken Lejeune, good friend of mine, and the late Howard Mattis, who was the first man to start all of us down the road on the study of Civil War flags. So I like giving credit where credit's due. Thank you, folks, for having me down.
Raise your hand. We'll bring the microphone to you.
I just bashed everybody into submission. That's
The flags that were sold at auction, what is the price range for a Civil War
way above
flag?
my pay grade. And I work for myself. I own 2 businesses, and my boss stinks. He won't pay me enough. Like that Alcorn Rifles flag you saw, 40 grand. But that flag was in fantastic, actually it was in much worse shape. I should have put a pre-conservation picture. Remember that 16 Mississippi flags down the road, the mess of silk chips? That's not quite as bad as what the Alcorn Rifles flag looked like, but it was pretty bad. And modern technology with flag conservation, you can piece all that together, and there's several different ways of conserving flags. There's several companies that do that, textile preservation in Maryland now. I've been to their lab a couple times. Josh Phillips in Virginia, I've been to his lab about 5 times. And putting these things together, and you've got to have the patience of Job, which I don't. So I'm glad these guys get paid the big bucks to do it, because I'd be drinking heavily, and God knows what those things would look like if I was doing it. But yeah, it depends. Like those little Bible flags that we're selling, those could be $4 or $5 grand on up. But and there's a tier of flags. You've got the Alcorn Rifles. A is real pretty. B, it's a battlefield capture. That helps. That adds sizzle, as we call it, to the price. A flag capture in battle is going to be, and that's U.S., by the way, too, is going to have a lot more sizzle than it was found in a box in this house. And those turn up, too. Even flags, when I lived in Ohio till 21 years ago, about 2 hours from me, a trunk was open in a house, and inside was the first National Silk Battle Flag of the 8th Tennessee Infantry. Somehow got to Ohio. So this stuff turns up. I talked about that Mississippi Hardee flag found on a roll-top desk in a cigar box. They knock a hole in the wall of a remodeled antebellum house. Oh, wow, flag. Documents. Stuff turns up. It keeps turning up. I just wish Ken and Howie were still here to see it, because I know how excited they'd be.
We have a question from our old friend Charlie Brenner on YouTube. He asks, did a particular rank of soldier or officer carry the banners in battle?
That will change. Thank you for bringing that up. The Confederate Color Guard was 6. 1 color bearer, because they only carried 1 flag by regulation, and 5 color guards. Those guys are armed. The color bearer is not. When the color bearer falls, the next guy lays his weapon down and picks up the flag and keeps on going. Union Army had 9 in the color guard, because they carried 2 colors, national colors, regimental colors by regulation. And in the Union Army, they had the color sergeants that carried the flags, and then color corporals made up the color guard. The Confederate Army started out like that, but then we're losing guys hand over fist. Case in point, 26 North Carolina, first day of the Battle of Gettysburg. In 1 hour, 15 color bearers, including their colonel. 26-year-old Henry Burgoyne, last guy to get the flag, gets up, and his blood's on that flag. And 14 other guys before him. They faced off the 24th Michigan, the Iron Brigade. This is a Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston type bout. They just went toe-to-toe for an hour. They lost 9 color bearers. And their flag looks like the state of Utah. We call it the Utah flag, because it's so shot up, it looks like the state of Utah. It's a dangerous job. Now, in 1864, the Confederates create the rank of ensign. And that is the command authority only of the color guard of 2nd lieutenant. And they get a pay increase. You have to get letters of recommendation. Let's say Chris has been valorously carrying the flag of a Mississippi unit and managed to live to tell about it until 1864. And the colonel goes, "This is the man I want as my ensign." And it goes up the chain of command, approved, disapproved, or whatever. And that guy will be the ensign rank of carrying the flag. That gets rescinded in 1865. So a lot of times you're going to see, as the battle rages, privates are picking it up. You just don't want your flag laying on the ground. That's just dishonor to have that happen. So you're in combat, who do you shoot first? The color guard. I've commanded troops in reenacting, and the colonel of the regiment is behind the color guard, who's in the center of the regiment with their companies out to the left and right, and you've got your company commanders. If you want to see a completely accurate rendition of that, watch the Pickett's charge scene in the Gettysburg movie, where they form up, they come out of the woods, form up in their lines of regiment, they're issuing orders, and the colonel will yell an order, so to say, like, battalion, 10 company commanders, battalion, forward, march. And at the word march, well, the color guard's already 6 paces in front, because at forward, they move forward 6, and that march, everybody moves. And when the bang starts happening, even at a reenactment, you can't hear. So everybody on both sides of that color guard are like, where's the flag going? Oh, left oblique turn, let's do a left oblique turn. Right oblique turn, stop, regiment breaks in combat, fall back, rally on the flag, that kind of stuff. Both sides, that's how it is for both sides. And it's a dangerous job, and men of both sides never stopped coming forward.
It was a fast-moving hour with a whole lot of flags. Thank you all for
There's a
being
pop
here.
quiz. There's a pop quiz.
Right.
I'm married to a teacher. It's a pop quiz.
Don't forget that we'll have Greg doing a gallery talk upstairs at 11 o'clock tomorrow, and then come back next week for History's Lunch with Jeannie Speck-Thompson, talking about the outsider artist M.B. Mayfield from Ecru, Mississippi. One last time, help me thank Greg Biggs for this.
Thank you.
Mississippi Pride.
Thank you for having me.